Hello, today I'm going to show you how can risk be handled in Microsoft Project Accelerator for projects which are created either in Microsoft Project Accelerator or in Microsoft Project for the web. For this purpose, I will open Power Apps, I will go to Apps and I will choose Project. And in the project section, I can see that I have already created some projects. And I will say that I want to create risks for ERP project. So I will double click on it and I will hit on Risks tab. As you can see, I don't have any risk yet, so I will going to add new one. First of all, I will put a name for this risk. So let's call it risk of transferring data. Now it has states which are proposed. It means that risk is something which still exists but didn't happen yet. Active is it happened, so you should act upon on it. Closed is mean that risk doesn't have any probability to happen in the future, so it is closed, or it happened, but you solve it in any way. And on hold is that risk is temporary on hold, as it says, and it is not proposed, active, or closed. By the way, let me say I will choose proposed, and let me explain you what is the risk. Risk is something which will happen in future, always in future, because if it is not in future, if it actually exists, and you know that something exists, you are not going to create a risk, you are going to create an issue, which is going to be explained in my next video. So I choose state and I should assign risk to someone. Let's say that Ellen is responsible for my for handling my risks. Okay, in which category does this risk belong? Is it risk about stakeholder, about scope, about change, about resources, design, technical, or other? And those can be changed, as I showed you in my previous video. This is just default options which I have. So basically, if I will not get data from the old system, I will not be able to transfer data in my new system. So I depend on the stakeholder if we'll be able, or if we will, to prepare old data for my new system. So I will say stakeholder, and I have a typo here, so I will going to change it. And now due date. If you know where it can happen, due date, you can put a risk. So I will say, let's say that it will be that I am expecting this data transfer at 15th of September, so due date is here. If you don't know the due date, just leave it blank. Now we have every risk has probability and impact. If I said that probability is 30 and impact is 5, you will see that I will have risk exposure, which are going to be calculated when I save this risk. Cost is what is the cost if risk happens. So I will say that for this cost, I will this risk can cost me 10,000 my local currency kunas if it happens, because my customer will have to, let's say, or we will have to, if this is our project, enter all those data manually instead of transferring it via some Excel or ODBC or whatever. And and now if I hit save and close, I will or save, sorry, I will get those exposure and cost exposure calculated. So I will do it. I will say save, and I will see that this is 1.5 and this is 3000 kunas. How is risk exposure and cost exposure calculated? So I have 1.5. 30 means 30%. So it is 0.3. Okay? 5 is impact. So 0.3 multiplied by 5 is 1.5. So the formula is probability multiplied by impact divided by 100. So what does it mean, probability? Probability 30 means that I have 30% probability that the risk will happen. But what impact means? Impact means if it happens, how hard is going to hit me. So I will say 5 because it will hit me. It will hit me very strong. If it doesn't hit me, for example, very strong, I could put here 2 or 1. On the other hand, if I will have 2, according to this risk, manually entered or by data, and I will not be able to transfer it, so it will cost me 10,000. Okay, this is the real cost if risks happens. But cost exposure is real cost multiplied by probability. It is 30% divided by 100, so it is basically 10,000 multiplied by 0.3. So cost exposure, how is risk exposed in a cost meaning is 3000 kunas. But don't get that wrong. If the risk will happen, it will cost you 10,000 kuna. But this is just exposure, because only 30% or 30% maybe to someone is high is probability. So the probability is 1.5, exposure is 1.5, but cost exposure is 3000. Narrative, mitigation plan, contingency plan. For the end of this video, let me show you. Narrative is, there is a risk that we will not be able to get from data from legacy system in a way that we will import it. So if this happens, we will, let's say, we will have to enter all data manually. Okay. Mitigation plan. Description is very simple. Mitigation plan is what are you going to do if the risk hits you. In a risk management system, you have several possibilities, and I will now explain them to you. There are 4 things you can do. First of all is avoid. Avoid means that you will do a mitigation plan which will make a risk avoidable. It means that the probability is 0. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you are going to test equipment, that you should test some equipment in the ocean, and the person who is going to test it should jump in the ocean and test it, let's say 3 feet under the surface of water surface. Okay, that person should dive. But in this area, where where you plan to test that equipment, there are a lot of sharks, and there is a strong probability that the person will be hurt or attacked by a shark, and a strong impact if it will be attacked by shark. So for that purpose, you don't want to even think about that the person who is going to test it will be hurted, and you want to avoid it. You can cancel the testing, go to some another area or another sea, let's say in Adriatic Sea where I live, where are no sharks, or you can test it in a swimming pool. But the avoiding means the risk will not happen. On the other hand, you have transfer. Transfer is when you transfer risk to someone else. So I will going to do that. I will hire a company who is specialized for data transferring. Okay, here is the typo. Transferring, and very well knows the structure of data in our legacy system. So when you transfer the risk, someone else takes a risk on their own. So let me give you the best example. When you insure your car, it means if you will have accident, the insurance takes a risk. Okay. And then we have a mitigation. Mitigation means that you are going to decrease either probability, either impact, or both of them. What can we do with, for example, in my example with the sharks, to decrease probability? We can, let's say, feed the sharks 100 meters, or let's say 1 mile away from the testing area. It means that those sharks are going to be attracted by that meat, and then maybe they will eat that meat, but not they are not going to attack our tester. But it doesn't mean that they will not for 100% attack. Maybe some shark will see our tester and try to attack them. Him or her. So you are with feeding that animals, danger animals, away from your testing area. You are decreasing probability, but you are not avoid a problem in a full. Impact. How can we decrease the impact in my example? Well, very well. Let's say that you put the person who is going to test this equipment in the cage. So that person will be in a cage. So if the shark attacked the person, the impact will be lower than 5. It is not any more danger that the shark will kill our tester, but maybe it can be some scratches on that person because he or she can falls in a cage. But in that cage, the shark cannot kill the person. And what can you do else? You can eat. Both of them can be decreased. You can feed them, so to decrease probability, and put the person in a cage, and that is decreasing of impact. And finally, you have acceptance. What is acceptance? Acceptance means if it happens, it happens. When do you go to accept your risk? There are 2 cases when you are going to do it. You are going to do it either when you don't have any other option. So you cannot avoid it, you cannot transfer it, you cannot mitigate probability, impact, or both of them. So you should accept it. You don't have any other choice. Or when the, let's say, when the costs of mitigation plan here are higher than a damage when if the risk hits you. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you have your garage and you have some things in your garage. Not a car, some all things. And if you want, you can insure your things for stealing. And maybe insurance company will tell you, okay, if you want to insure things in your garage, you should pay $1,000 per year. But all those stuffs which you have in your garage are worth, let's say, $300. Are you going to spend $1,000 for insurance for the things which worth $300? No, you are going to accept it. If it happens, it happens. If someone's going to steal those things, I accept it. Contingency plan is also plan B. If this thing doesn't work, it means that contingency plan is how are you going to act if mitigation plan will not work. So this is plan B. So what are you going to do if mitigation plan, which is described here, will not work? So you will say, we will hire students, which we usually do in my country, for entering data in a new system manually. Okay, manually. And this is all. So once again, for risk is always in the future. Risk can have 4 states. You can add your states if you want by modifying this choice field. Risk should have owner. Use risk should be in some category. So to which is category? Is it time? Is it scope? Is it change or whatever? Always should have probability and impact. Probability is how likely is that it will hit me, and impact means how much will I suffer if it hits me. Exposure is probability multiplied by impact, but probability is in percentage, so probability multiplied by impact divided by 100. Cost is how much will it cost me if the risk hits me. Cost exposure is how is this risk exposed to my project, so it is cost multiplied by probability divided by 100. Description is description of the risk, so this is a risk. And mitigation plan is what are you going to do if risk happens, and contingency plan is what are you going to do if this mitigation plan wouldn't work. And finally, you should save and close it, and I'm going to save and close it, and I will here see all my risks. For now, I have one risk, but also I can add another risk. So I can say, for example, okay, that here is, let's say, risk of losing staff or employee, let's say employees, business analysts. So there is a lack of business analysts in the market, so you have a risk that someone will leave your company. It is assigned to, let's say, John. So John is, let's say, our resource manager, and he is going to talk with those persons. I will say that this risk is in resource category. I cannot put the due date here because I don't know when and which resource and if it will leave my company. So I will say probability is, let's say, 30 30, let's say 20%, but impact is, let's say 10, because if my business analyst leave me, I will be in great trouble, because I don't have replacement for him or her, and it will not be able to analyze the system, and we are going to be late. Cost may be, let's say, be 100,000. Description, and description is I will put description here. Here is mitigation. Give him a raise now. Contingency plan, outsource BA, okay, business analyst, and I will click save. I will here have that exposure is 2, that cost exposure is 20,000. I save and close, and I will see this risk as well. So I can here choose to sort by categories, etc., etc., but you get the picture. So this is all about risks. In my next video, I'm going to explain and show you how can you handle issues in project for the web. For now, thank you very much. Have a nice